Hi everybody, and welcome to my session. My name's Melissa Simmonds, and I also go by the name of my organisation, which is MisTÂûght. And I just wanted to talk to you about respecting differences. A hashtag that's really important to me at the minute, and I try to use in everything I do, is Black Autistic Lives Matter, because I think we don't understand just how marginalised we are as a community. So as MisTÂûght, I started MisTÂûght about 3-4 years ago now. And it happened because my daughter got a diagnosis of autism at the age of 6 and had a little boy in her class who repeatedly told her that autism was a disease. And she would obviously come home quite upset and distressed about that. And I felt the school didn't do enough about it. And so I thought, actually, it would be good if I could go to schools and educate little children about autism, because just like how my children would come home and teach me and talk to me about, the benefits of not smoking and exercise and, recycling. They learn so much at schools. They're little sponges. And so I thought, actually, if I did assemblies about autism, then children would grow up and be more respectful of people who were neurodiverse and had neurodisabilities. My background is I actually have a food degree from many, many years ago. And my son was diagnosed with autism when he was 4, and it felt like the end of the world to me because I just didn't understand what autism was. And at that time, many years ago now, at that time, when you Googled autism, everything was just doom and gloom. Thankfully, one of the women I worked in the office with, she had an autistic son as well, and went to a local parent-led group called ACT, which stands for Asperger's Children and Carers Together. And that place became my lifeline, where I learned a lot about my child. I learned a lot about myself as an individual. I started to realize that my daughter was struggling with some things, and she got a diagnosis of autism when she was 6. And through that as well, learning about my son and learning about my daughter, I started to see and acknowledge the difficulties that I've had growing up, which I kind of didn't acknowledge before or masked, because a lot of girls mask the difficulties that they have when they're autistic. And so 4 years ago at, I won't say my age, but almost 40, I received a diagnosis of autism as well. And then I decided that, I really wanted to understand what autism was, because autistic people are so different. And I wanted to try and advocate for my kids as much as I could. And I thought, I need to not just understand the day-to-day understanding of autism, I needed to understand it on an educational and scholar level. So I went back to university, and I should have completed a master's in autism studies in July, but obviously COVID got in the way and I had to kind of put it on hold. So fingers crossed, by July this year, I would have completed my master's in autism. So I'm not just an autistic adult with autistic children, but I've also gone and learnt about autism on it. So I consider myself to be a scholar in it as well, which I hate those kind of words. I really struggle with university. I really struggle with the language. I talk and write differently to how you have to in university to get good grades. So it's really, really hard for me, university, but I have kind of persevered in it, and I've learned a lot and become a more confident mother and autistic woman because I understand it more now. So MisTÂûght was kind of created to teach children, but then when I went to university, I understood just how difficult it was for Black people to get a diagnosis, because the diagnostic tools are culturally biased. And I didn't realize that at the time. So just the interactions you have with the people who are diagnosing you, their perceptions as well, their microaggressions often lead to people getting misdiagnosed with something else, or, you know, you're not getting diagnosed at all. So that's a little bit more about me. Now, any talk I ever give, I always show this slide because it's really important for me to stress that, you know, you can see that circle for white and what that encompasses, and you're classed as white on the ONS. And then in the yellow circle, you can see you have Arab, you have mixed race people of various mixedness, you have Black, you have Asian. I mean, under Asian, you've got Indian, Bangladeshi, Chinese, you probably have Japanese as well. Under Black, you've got Caribbean, you've got African. And so there's this big circle of people who are classed as BAME or BME or person of colour. So whenever there's a talk or a session that I attend and people say, oh, we've got somebody from the BAME community, we've got a BAME representative, I always ask, what does that mean? Because as an individual, I cannot tell you what it feels like to be a Japanese autistic person. And it would be absurd for you to presume that I could. But at conferences, a person will say, we have a BAME representative to talk about autism. And for them, for the white communities, it's a tick box exercise. But for us as individuals under the BAME umbrella, you are missing the very essence of who we are as individuals. And so I think it's always important for me to show this and to show just how many different ethnicities and nationalities come under the word BAME. And then this here, which I think is a lovely quote. It says, personally, I've never referred to my ethnicity using BAME or BMA, and I don't like it when they are used to describe me. Like many ethnic minorities, I proudly refer to my specific ethnic identity. My background is Indian. And for me, my background is I originated from Jamaica. So both my parents were born there. My husband was born there as well. But I'm a born and bred Yorkshire lass. You know, I love my Yorkshire puddings, but I also love my rice and peas, which is Jamaican. And I will happily have both on my dinner plate on a Sunday. So for me, I see the benefits of being part of this community, but I need people to understand that I'm not BAME, I'm not BAMER, I'm not a person of colour, I'm a Black woman. I also show this slide because it's important for people to understand that when you look at the pictures on the top, you see a lot of white people, mainly white men. And these are the people, this is the face of autism. These are the people that played important roles in creating the concept of autism. But as you can see, they're all white and they're all middle class. So actually the concept of autism is very Eurocentric. And the concept was developed on a group of white middle class boys. They kind of saw I think at the time they would call it more like an abnormality or a difference in these people. And they used them as lab rats really and did experiments, did observations on them. And that's how the concept of autism was created. But you need to understand that a lot of the creation of that concept is still being used now. So if you're using diagnostic tools that aren't culturally relevant for communities like mine, we're going to actually miss diagnoses within those communities. So that's why I'm always lobbying for the fact that if all the people, all the scholars, all the important names and faces of autism are white, middle class, Eurocentric individuals, of course you're going to miss Black and brown autistic people who also need diagnosis and support. So I like to talk about quality of life because it's defined as a concept that reflects a person's desired conditions of living related to 8 core dimensions of one's life, which is emotional well-being, interpersonal relationships, material well-being, personal development, physical well-being, self-determination, social inclusion and rights. And I have the right as a Black woman and as a Black autistic woman to have a good quality of life. And so do my children. So in everything I do, I'm working towards making sure that the society and the community that I live in is better for my children. So I'm trying to ensure that everybody who will ever come into contact with my children has an understanding of autism, has an understanding of them being Black and not a BAME individual, understands that girls are more likely to mask. I want people within Sheffield to understand that autism isn't what your concept of autism is. It's very nuanced. It's if you're in a room of 500 autistic people, we're all very, very different, but there are certain things that we all struggle with, and our levels and degrees of struggle is different, but nonetheless, we are all struggling. So I've doctored this picture because I think in pictures, I don't think in words, I think in pictures. And so this picture is something, again, I always show to show that as an autistic person, we're a minority, and it's a real struggle for autistic individuals. But also as Black individuals, we also are classed as a minority and we struggle. So it's a double impact, that intersection, it hits us much harder because we are Black and we are autistic. And there's a lot of infighting within the autism community because there's a belief that we're all equal and we're all struggling. But I always try to let people understand that autism is it's like a micro world. And if you think of the bigger world, we're in a time where we're having to still fight and explain to people that Black lives matter. So that's also happening within the autism communities as well.
1 minute warning, Melissa, sorry.
Thank you. It's really, really important for you to look at me and yes, people might say, oh, you're very articulate, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. But I can't stress how much work has to go into me being able to sit here and present. I can't explain how much medication I have to take to be able to function, how many times I have to read one email for it to make sense, how long it takes me to write a single email, how long it takes me to just function day to day and appear to be normal. And so I'd like people to kind of leave here understanding that the prejudices that we have towards autistic people who are maybe able to function is really affecting our community. I'd love people in positions of power to think about autistic adults more and get them into the rooms, get them to talk, get their opinions, because our opinions and our thoughts matter. Because before we were autistic adults, we were autistic children. And so we're able to feed into the work that's being done to help the autism community as a whole. But you have to be willing to help us and not be gatekeepers anymore. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.